on. Oh, perfect. We're good.
All right. Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
How are you? Yeah. Watching?
No, I was asked to introduce.
Oh, okay.
And I'll be right out the door.
I'm ready. Ready when you guys are.
All right. So I was asked to come
Man.
and introduce.
There's a lot of people here today.
Alexandra. She is, if you haven't heard, she's been doing consulting for us for the last year almost
Mhm.
now. It's been a
Yeah.
while. She did a great job with the Kroger teams, and we've been working on rolling this out for a very long time. She knows the processes. She knows a lot of our team members, and so she's been brought in to help and train up the whole team so we can squash our scheduling woes once and for all after this is done. So, welcome.
All right. Thank you. Nice to meet you all. I know I've met a lot of you before, but some people are here from last week too. So good to see you guys. All right. Thank you. All right. Can you guys see me if I sit down? Is that okay? Okay, cool. There's so many more people here than last week. Like double. Okay.
All people got in trouble.
For not going. So I'm gonna just move this over to the screen just to kind of give like an overview of, I had it printed out last week, but I feel like it's easier to show you guys. I'm just gonna kind of run through like what the classes are, because there's 4 classes, which you guys know that, right? There's like a 4 part. So it is like an 8 to 10 hour training class, depending on what all you cover. So basically, instead of doing like a 8 hour to 10 hour day, it's split up into the 4 different classes. So the first day, or the first class, we are going to cover the schedule template, which is primarily what we're going to talk about today. There are some other topics in here that I'm going to go over at the beginning, but it's more so to just like get your wheels spinning for what other questions you have as we go through, not just today, but all the classes. But they're just kind of things to think about when you start your schedule. They're not things that are, oh, this is for sure what you do. This is the process. It's more so like things to think about and how you would, reflect some of those things on the schedule, just to kind of be thinking about building your schedule in a different way. We're also going to talk about the intro to the software. So who all has used the software before? Has everyone here used it for the most part? Okay, perfect. So we'll do like an overview. There's a lot of ways that you can click the same button, which I'm sure you guys that have worked in it know. So we'll go through kind of like the different ways you can access the same settings. So we'll do a high level view of that today. And then for the second class, it's actually like building out a schedule. So we're going to talk about the actual, how you tie activities in, how you add activities. We'll cover some of that today, but just from a high level. So if something's too fast, feel free to raise your hand and tell me to slow down, or don't raise your hand and just tell me. But we are going to go through a lot of the stuff that we talk about today in more detail later through the training. And also the shortcut keys. I'm not like a huge shortcut key person, but if there are shortcuts that you'd like to know, I can like either make like an index of them or something, or just tell you which one you're looking for if you are like a shortcut key kind of person. So then if we can fit it in the second class, we're also going to go over some of the formatting and the layouts. Some of the formatting we'll cover today as well with the schedule template, but that's a next class. And then class 3/4 is finalizing and setting your baseline. So basically today's class is an overview of the software. The next class is going to be actually building out a schedule in the software. And then the third class is going to be finalizing that as a baseline. And then the fourth class is updating your schedule. So I just wanted to kind of give an overview of this just so you guys can see it, so you know what's coming. I think it'll be helpful to kind of see maybe what questions you have today. Feel free to ask questions that are not on today's class too. I mean, if something comes up you have a question on, feel free to ask. And also if I'm going too fast, just tell me to slow down, because I have been known to do that. So just let me know. All right. Any questions before we get started? All right. Sorry, I went too far up. Okay, so we're going to talk about the schedule template today. But in other things that I just want to go over from like a high level standpoint is how to show the weather. We're going to go over that in the template, but has anyone had like issues with weather in the past that are different than a weather bank, or things where you've had the owner kind of object to how you show weather? Has anybody had any issues like that? It's really lucky if you haven't. That's great. All right. Okay, awesome. Then we will just go over the way that you show weather in the template and how it's set up, and we won't worry about the other ways. So that's really good. The only time, well, I'll go over it when we show it. And then also how to show delays. We're going to go over kind of where you put that in the template, but then we're actually going to show how to build out a delay when we go through updating the schedule. But if you have any questions, feel free to ask again. We're going to talk about managing the float in your schedule. So managing your float is just super important in general because if you don't manage your float in your baseline and your float's too high, then when you start your project and you start going through and you have a delay that impacts your schedule, it may not actually impact your critical path if your baseline is not set up in full. So if you have like too high a float on something like your CMU where you know it's critical, and then something delays the CMU, if it's not going to show critical because you don't have the schedule, I guess like fine-tuned and completed before you start, then that can just cause issues. So those are the kind of float management things that we'll be looking at as we go through this process. But you want to make sure that your float values seem correct and that your critical path seems correct. Usually if you're in the field and you think something's critical, it probably is. So if it's not showing critical on your schedule, then it may just be because you're missing a logic tie somewhere, or maybe you have a logic tie that you don't need somewhere. So it's showing something critical that really shouldn't be. With that, if your critical path is truly earlier, we'll show where you would build in float on the schedule as well. So you don't want to show your contract schedule that's short of your contract time. So we have the weather bank at the end of the schedule, but then we'll also show kind of ways that you can have like a, Ridgemont punch list and then punch corrections, final clean, and kind of just stretch it out with like, not fake activities, but stretch it out with your own float where if you do have to cut durations, you're cutting your own and you're not cutting somebody else's. So that's just things to think about as well when you set up your baseline. And then the float clauses and weather clauses, it sounds like that's really not something that you guys encounter too much. Are there any that you guys have encountered? Do you know, like, are you familiar with like a float clause if I say that? Okay, so like in your contract, it'll be a float clause that says like who owns the float. So it'll say like usually the project owns the float. So the float's like for the exclusive use of the benefit of the project. But once in a while, it will say that the owner owns the float so that every time you show a schedule finishing early, they'll try to take that from you. Or if you gain time and you're finishing a month early, then there's an owner delay that pushes you out a month. You're not able to actually like claim that as a delay because they are owning the float. It's not common, but it is something. And morally, it's like government projects where they'll try to do that. It's not so much like private stuff, but private stuff's more like relationship based. Yeah.
Multiple critical.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Don't have that, it's going to show you the truth.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
The multiple critical paths, does that have a certain amount of float that it ties into?
You can, yes. So you can have it show like if you want everything that's like 10 days or less afloat to be critical, then you can change it right there. It's actually like right underneath that setting. Yeah, and so you change it from 0 days to 10 days. So then when you filter for critical, more things will show red. If you want more trades to think they're critical, that's like where I see people change that. But then the multiple critical paths will be like if you're missing a successor on a chain. So you have like 2 turnover dates, then anything without a successor will show its own critical path. However, if you like drop a successor somewhere, it's going to show a lot of stuff critical that you may not want. But that's technically what that does. So yeah, it just gives you everything that ends where it's like the end of that chain is going to show your critical path of that chain. So it's kind of hard. That one doesn't, I don't love that feature just because like it doesn't work the way you kind of want it to. But there is a way to show your driving path, which I think is probably more so more beneficial depending on what you're looking at. Any other questions like that? I mean, that's a really good question. Just with your float, like if you do have multiple contractual turnovers, you definitely want to reflect that. But you'll show those with a constraint on your finish date. So you can say, oh, this has to finish like on or before this date. And then this milestone for a turnover has to finish on or before this date. So you can show your float that way. But just overall, just things to think about as we go. If you have questions that come up as we go, feel free to ask. It doesn't have to be in order of what we're talking about. So, and then scheduling standards, if you don't have strict scheduling specs, this is mostly like if you work with public stuff or government work, the scheduling specs will have like, which will be in your contract or, in the spec section for Division 1, that will limit your durations that you can have. It'll limit if you have multiple trades on one activity. I'm happy to answer any questions if you guys have any projects like that, but if not, I won't bore you with it because it's not really fun stuff for that one. But yeah, feel free to ask me any questions if you do have anything like that. All right. Any questions from an overview standpoint before we go ahead and get started with our template? Okay. Does everybody have the template? Okay. So first step is to open it. Everyone, can you just raise your hand like when you have it open so I know? Okay. Okay, perfect. Is anybody not able to have it open? Okay. Do you have it? Or you don't have Microsoft Project or you don't have the template? Oh, okay. Yeah.
Is the template set up on a 5-day work week?
This one is, we're going to go through how to change it though. Yeah. Yeah. So what we'll go through, so the template right now, at the end of the training, there's going to be another template that has more stuff incorporated in it, but there's less stuff in this template so that we could go through the process of how to add it, if that makes sense. So we'll go through, because even if you do have a template set up, you still want to modify it, make it specific to your project. So we're going to show you how to do all those things, and then we'll go from there. Is he good or did?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just go send him the call.
Okay. All right. So just for my personal preference, do you guys have like the timeline at the top? It looks, I can get it to show up maybe. Like this thing. If you want to get rid of it, you can right click and say show timeline. I'm gonna make my mouse bigger.
You make it go away.
You found it, okay.
You don't like to have
When I'm not on a monitor, it takes up too much space. At least just like my personal preference. Okay, is that mouse better? I'm making my mouse bigger. Okay, let me make it a little bit bigger. Let's see, wait.
You be able to click though?
Probably, hopefully. Can you see it? Okay.
What was it?
My cursor. I learned how to do this in a training. Someone stopped me and like showed me how to type it in and how to make it bigger. There's icons that I'll show you guys, so I want you guys to be able to see the icons. Is this big enough? Okay.
It's a little overkill.
Great. Okay. So I know the icons are like huge once they pop up. So if you want to hide the timeline up here, when I'm not on my monitor, I feel like it just takes up too much of like the screen space. So you can right click up here and then you can click on show timeline. It has the check mark next to it. So if you right click show timeline, it'll go away. And then you just have more space to view. If you want it to come back, right click over here in the Gantt chart and you can say show timeline and it'll come back. Okay. Does anybody's look different than this so far? Okay, perfect. So just to kind of touch on the weather day. Oh yeah, go ahead. Do you have the schedule file open? Sounds like you probably don't.
Let me send it to you.
Oh, you don't have,
Let me send it to y'all.
oh, the one from last week. Do you want to start over with the older one? Okay. I can, okay. Yeah.
I can get some predecessors and mine goes away.
Yeah, you like drag it down. You can do it in a task and then it's details right here. So like in the task ribbon and then details, we'll make it pop up. Because if you drag it down too much, it goes away. All right. All right. When everyone's ready, just let me know. We'll continue. All right. Okay. So we'll kind of just run through. So this is the template. So this template's going to have more stuff in it at the end. So it'll have like your calendars more catered towards your project setup, or not catered towards your project, but it'll have like more comprehensive calendars. It'll have more comprehensive views in here and filters. But for this training, it's not, just so that we can go through the process of creating all that stuff. But I'll run through the template itself, like the structure of it and how it's set up. So first you have just the name of the project, which you'll change this to your project title. And then you have the milestones, which you'll have contract milestones, project milestones, contract being like the ones listed in here, your substantial completion. Project milestones, these will change based on what you want to track for your project. So maybe you don't care about tracking the building pad complete, but maybe you care about tracking something else. But these would be the ones that are just not contractual dates, but other dates. And then here is the weather bank. So this weather bank will be whatever you think. I think it's like 3 per day is typically what you guys do. So if you have 6 months to dry in, that's where this 18 is coming from. So it's assuming you have 6 months of critical path activities that are weather sensitive. So this bank will end up being at the very end of your project, and it'll have your whole construction duration, and then the bank at the end, and then your contractual completion date. Does that make sense? Is anyone not familiar with how to set up the weather bank? Or are you guys all kind of familiar with it? Okay. Sure. I drew it on here last time. I felt like it was helpful. But basically you have like your construction duration, like this is your contract duration here. So you'll set up your construction duration here and then the weather bank here. So it's at the end. So it's like your own float. And this is also like where you would plug in like contractor punch, final clean, whatever, just to add duration. And then once you're actually encountering weather days, so say you have 3 weather days like here, here, and here, then your finish date would push out 3 days. You'd cut your weather bank 3 days. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. And sometimes the contracts, well, why I brought up the contracts earlier, sometimes they don't let you do a bank, so you have to track your weather differently, but we're not going to go over that unless you guys encounter something like that. In that case, you would just kind of like fluff up your durations for things that are weather sensitive. All right. So yeah, so this weather delay activity, this bank that we have in here, when you're actually tying in your schedule, because you'll take this template to build out your schedule, this is going to go at the very end, right before you're tracking substantial completion. All right. So then you have pre-construction. This may or may not apply to what you have, but you'll fill out the pre-construction. Same with the submittals and procurement. You'll fill out what you have here. Franchise utilities, and then here's the actual construction. So it's set up with like a general site work where you can fill in. I mean, the site work is not too complex. When we talked about it before, like site work's so different depending where you are. So just earthwork, utilities, paving, landscaping. Utilities usually is what I see broken out for like different sections for the sanitary sewer lines, storm drains, all that stuff. And then for the building, it has different options for the structure. So you'll use the one that applies to you, and then you'll break that out into the more details. And then same with, so you have all these structures, then the exterior, and then interiors, final inspections. So basically it has like template activities that you can utilize, but you do have to tie everything in. So if you'll notice, everything here has a push pin next to it, like a blue push pin. So that means that it's manually scheduled. So when you're done with your schedule, you should have no more push pins. Everything should be automatically scheduled and tied in with logic. And once you get rid of the push pins too, like if I got rid of this one, then this all of a sudden has a duration and dates. So that's the goal, is that you use it just as a rough starting point. And then once you're done tying everything in, you'll have dates and durations throughout, and you'll have no more blue push pins. So that's just kind of like how you're going to utilize this as we go. Any questions there? Does that make sense? Okay, awesome. All right. So now we'll go through the different toolbars and menus. So first, at the very top, we'll go through each of the ribbons. So we'll start with the file ribbon. So file, and then is everybody's gray here, or who has green, who has gray? Okay, so the only difference with that is your icons might look a little bit modified from mine, but they're all there. It just might look a little bit different if you have the green. It's just a different version of it. Okay, so go File, and then click on Info. So file at the top and info. So this is where you're going to see an overview of your actual project information. So you'll see the project start date. This you will have to modify to what your start date is. So this is one of the locations that you can change that. So say that we're making our start date. So let's, for this template, just for the example, let's make our start date this past Monday, 6/10. So we'll say 6/10. Sometimes it tries to get the 6/10 to be a different time of day. So we'll see, we'll go through the steps of how to see that and how to show it. But here you can change it to say, okay, we want our project start date for this project to be 6/10. So then we say, okay, we'll let the finish date calculates from the schedule. You don't have to worry about that. And then it tells us when it was modified. It tells us the standard calendar. This is just giving us an overview of this actual file itself for how everything is set up with the defaults. You can also click on project information. So in this info, hover over project information and click on it, and you'll see advanced properties. So click on advanced properties. Okay, does everyone see that? So this is where you change the title of your schedule. So I'm going to say training session 2 class 1. So that's what, I mean, your title is going to be your project name. It's not going to change through the project. Yeah, you can name it whatever you want. You can just say training session 2 or something. It can. It doesn't necessarily. It only does if you select the option for it to appear at the top. I like to have it actually like a bar at the top so you can change the date each week without changing, like going in and changing the project title. But you can make it show at the top. Yeah.
Is there a way to turn off the
Yes. That is that's in this next window that we'll show you. Is yours, have you tried to turn it off and it won't go off? Okay, some people have brought up last week that they've tried to turn it off and it won't let them. So we'll see what happens. And then also, so that has the author of whoever created the file. You can change it to yourself. The author can be really helpful if you're inheriting a schedule from someone else, or you're using another project as a template to make your project, and you have something that's like a weird setting going on with the schedule, or you don't know information about it. You can check the author and see who made it, because if they still work here, they may be able to help you with whatever error message it was or something like that. If you do have something that's like weird in here that you can't figure out, it's a good resource to see who made it and see if they know.
But if I save as, does it just change the name from Connor to Mike, from Micah to me?
No, it would stay, yeah, it would stay Micah. So you'd have to change it in this. And then, but if you're saying like file new, it's going to be your name.
Okay.
Yeah. Question?
So, on my previous project,
Mhm.
I sent my schedule to
Mhm.
for him.
Mhm.
Every time I did that, and I had
Mhm.
that naturally done. Okay.
Oh, really?
Like, yeah.
Did you do it in the tracking Gantt by chance? Okay, the tracking Gantt will hide. So you have to turn it back on. So if you're just looking in the regular view, you won't see it. So if you go to the tracking Gantt, he should be able to see your changes though, once you do that. But was he in the tracking Gantt and it still wouldn't show up? Okay, that's interesting. I've had actually had someone call me earlier this week that issues were happening with the tracking Gantt. So I think that I don't use it. I always just use the regular, because I've seen just issues where it doesn't save or it doesn't calculate. Yeah, yeah, it's just right. Yeah.
Just never an hour. Now we're sitting here on Teams redoing it.
Yeah.
30 minutes running.
Yeah, the tracking Gantt doesn't say formatting for some reason. I don't know why. I haven't explored it too much, but I do know that it has issues with carrying that over for some reason. Do you always see it when you reopen your own file?
Yes.
Okay.
I just think it probably preference on the
yeah, I think the tracking Gantt is really there to hide stuff from whoever you send the file to. I think it's there so you can make notes and not send that to the owner. But I don't know that for sure. That's just from what I've seen as far as how the features are. So it may be actually hiding it from him. Yeah, kind of. So it's when you go in the Gantt chart here, it's when you go to tracking Gantt, and like the formatting looks totally different. So in the tracking again, it's going to look different. I don't know how that, I've never looked at someone else's file to see how the tracking again carries over, but it could potentially be unique to yourself based on that. But I don't know, I'd have to see. Yeah, that's interesting though. All right, so I'm going to go back to the info. Any other questions on the advanced properties or how we accessed anything here? Okay. I guess I just exited out of it. I didn't save it. So I'm going to rename it to say training session. I'll say training session group 2. Okay. I just hit enter. So it saved it. So it should be, yeah. So now it's there. Okay. If you have a lot of filters on your project, so like if you've made a lot of filters that it's like excessive and you want to get rid of some, that's in the organizer. The organizer is where you can show and hide different things that you've set up. So say that you have like 10 calendars and you don't want to show them all, or the filters are the main ones that people create a bunch of. This is where you can actually move things over and you can show more filters or you can take them away just to clean up the viewing of your project. That was in this organizer right here. Okay, any other questions on the info tab? Okay, so then now we'll go to options at the bottom. So this is file and then options at the very bottom. And this is where a lot of the questions you guys have had are shown. So does everybody have this? I hear some dinging, so maybe not. Okay. All right. So file and then the very bottom options. And you should see this pop-up window come up. Does everyone see that? Okay. So here for the date format, if we want to check if our date went to the time of day that we want, this is where you can click this drop down on date format right in the middle, and you can change it to be one that has the time included. So click the drop down and change it to show the time. And say okay. And see what time of day the top of your schedule says. Like mine says 1 p.m. Everyone see? Does anyone else not have 1 p.m.? At the very top. Okay. Okay. So there's a mix. And did everyone change it? Who says the people that are saying 8? Did you change it from 6:1 to 6:10 for the start?
The Monday does say 1 p.m.
It does. Okay. Okay, so then if that's the case, go to your project ribbon. So we're going to jump around a little bit, but go to the project ribbon right in the center. And then click project information. It's right underneath the word project. So the project ribbon at the top and then project information. And now you'll see, since we have shown our times, now you'll see in the pop-up window, the start date is showing our time. Do you guys see that? So then here, you can just highlight the 1 o'clock and you can just type in 8 o'clock a.m. and change it manually. So I just highlighted the 1 p.m. and I just changed it to 8 o'clock a.m. And I'm going to say, okay. And now my project start is 6:10 at 8 o'clock a.m. So this is a step that you'll likely have to go to when you set up your project and when you change it. Does anybody want to see that again? Okay, so I'm going to hit undo. So we had 6:10 at 1 p.m. So the first step was to go to File, Options. So then we went to the project options, and the first thing we did was show our times. So we showed in the first general tab, we changed the date format to show time so that we could see if the time of day was off. So that was step 1. And then we went to the project ribbon because now I see that it's 1 p.m. Does everyone see that, how it's 1 p.m.? Okay. Are you at 6:1? So go to File and then Info. And then change it from 6:1 to 6:10. Still shows 6:1. What about the stuff below it? Does it show 6:10 below? Okay. Okay. So there's probably something that's just manually holding it to that date. Okay, so is everyone clear on how to get the time to show? Okay, so then in the project ribbon, click project information. So project information, and you should see the start date popped up at that 6:10 we set it at, but it says 1 p.m. So change that from 1 p.m. to 8 o'clock a.m. And then when you say okay, you should see it move to 8 o'clock a.m. Everyone good? All right. Awesome.
Same thing as mine.
All right. So then, I don't know, mine says 18. But I changed one of my items down here to be manually scheduled, so could have done it. I don't know.
Stand over here. So before
Mhm.
I went in, project you know that start?
Mhm.
Actually click on it, make it pull up the calendar.
Oh, it did? Okay. With your times on. Okay. Oops.
Yeah, mine was showing 6:10.
Mhm. Yeah, there's like weird things, especially with the time of day for some reason. And sometimes it wants to do like 8 p.m. or 6 p.m. It's not always 1. So, I mean, it might be 1 because we're close to 1 o'clock right now. I don't know. But it does show weird times sometimes. So this is how you would change it if that's the case. Any other questions on this part so far? Okay. Everyone good? Okay. All right, so then now we'll go back to the file options and we'll continue to look through the different options. So file options at the bottom. So if you want, now we can take off the times because we've gone over that part. So you can change it back to being the default, which is like the day of week and then the short date. If you want to change your time of day back. All right. Okay. So then now we'll go to the display ribbon, the second ribbon. Does anybody have this entry bar checked? Okay, so if you have the entry bar checked, that is this right here that I'm highlighting with my cursor. It looks like Excel where it's like you can actually click on the cell and type in. I like to have it just because I'm used to working that way, but it's the same. So like when you don't have to click and hold a cell to get that text field to come up, if you have the entry bar, you can actually just utilize it like Excel. So this is your personal preference. I like to have it on, but that's what this entry bar is here. So it's under the file, the project options, and then it's under the display tab. Anyone not see it? It's in display. Okay. All right. Any other questions? This is just showing like what kind of calendar you have. But nothing here is really anything else that you would change. Yeah. Probably. I mean, I can't answer that for you, but okay, yeah. Sounds like it. Are you able to open the file?
Yeah, everything is functioning just fine.
Okay. All right. You probably won't be able to save anything. But yeah. Okay. Okay, sounds good. Okay, so then we'll go to the schedule ribbon. So the next ribbon is schedule. So this one, do you see how the sections at the top say your project name? So it says calendar options for this project and the project name. You can choose the project you have on or all new projects. So when you make changes to your project, just make sure that the default is to have the one that you're working in. But this is anything that has this calendar options and then the drop down, that's anything that's specific to this project itself. So when you send this project file to somebody else, they're going to see that setting change. Anything that does not have that, like in the entry bar, this doesn't have a project above it to show the entry bar. This one does here for the currency, but not down here. So that means that that's specific to your software. Whereas this one is specific to the project file. Does that make sense? Okay, awesome.
Settings to save for all of your templates or whatever.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So then it's just, you would say all new projects, but that's for when you create a new project on your software if you were to not use the template. So if you wanted them to be consistent, then you could just, this is just the steps of how to change it if you wanted it to be that way. But like the date format for how you read it, that's going to be the same. That's specific to how you open it. And then the entry bar will be specific to that. And there's a few things like the autosave, but anything that doesn't have this above it for the setting is something that's just specific to your software. That makes sense. And then this is the week starts on. I like to change this so that the week starts on Monday instead of Sunday. So then when you look at your 3-week look ahead, it's starting with the start of the work week. So that's just my preference as well. If you don't change yours, that's fine. But when we go through the calendar, it's just going to look a little different. Okay. And then the default start and end times, always leave these. You can rename your calendar to be called like 610s or something. I wouldn't change the time of day actually on your calendar because it's actually going to mess up some of like the background calculations in the software and it can just cause you issues later. So you can always rename a calendar to reflect that you're working 10-hour days, but then just keep the duration in full days as a day is a day. Okay, show schedule message. This is for your software. So if you want it to pop up and give you information about, it'll say like, oh, this constraint is doing this, like you'll have those little pop-up windows. If you don't like those, you can turn them off here. Scheduling options for the project. You should see auto scheduled for the default. Does everyone see that? Okay, we'll leave it on auto scheduled. If you have the push pins, it's manually scheduled. Ideally, you have no push pins in your file because it means that it's overriding any logic or anything else in the file, and it's just holding that date as if it was an Excel spreadsheet. So we always want everything to be auto scheduled. When you're done with your baseline, everything should be, and you shouldn't have anything manually scheduled in there. When it says work, that is referencing resources, so don't worry about that being hours. The default stays. And then down here where it says tasks will always honor their constraint date, uncheck that. That will also not let your finish date move if there's a constraint on it. So even if you're behind schedule, it won't let it show that way. So uncheck tasks will always honor constraint date so that you don't have that issue. Then your logic in your file is going to let it push the date.
But so if you uncheck that, it's going to push your date?
Well, it'll just let the logic drive what the finish date is versus holding it, on a set date.
So if you want to see what your current pushing your
Right.
date out to,
Right. So like your whole schedule could be 3 months behind and your completion date's still going to be on time if you have that checked. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions here so far? A lot of this, you're just going to stay the same, but if this is more so, we're just going through it so that if you encounter issues, you kind of know where to look. And then calculate project after each edit. If anyone took like a P6 scheduling class, you had to like hit F9 to schedule your project. This is saying that it just does it automatically. And then any change is going to be like shaded light blue. If you notice that, like the changes, each cell is like highlighted with light blue. That's what's happening when you have the calculations on. I don't recommend turning it off. I don't think there's really value to that because then you don't see what the changes are. Okay. Any other questions on this schedule ribbon itself? Okay. So then proofing, that's spell check. So this is like if you want your spell check to be certain ways. So if it's trying to come up as something's misspelled a lot and you want to say, no, that's a word, this is where you can change that. The next one is save. So this is where the autosave is in. So under save, it says autosave every however many minutes. Uncheck that if you don't want that to come up. So it doesn't save. So even if you do the autosave, it's going to pop up a pop-up window asking you if you want to save. Like Microsoft Project does not save. And if your computer crashes or if you shut it down, it won't save what you're working on. I hit Control S like just all the time when I'm working through my file so I don't lose it. Because that happens. So the autosave doesn't work the way that you want it to. It's not like any other Microsoft feature where it saves it. It's going to have a pop-up window. But if you're nervous about messing that up, you can make it go away or you can keep it on. But I don't keep mine on personally. I just hit like the save button all the time. All right. Any questions on this? Otherwise, we'll keep going down. I'm going to skip language. So the advanced ribbon, this is the one where we were talking about the critical, how you define critical and making multiple critical paths. So scroll all the way down to the bottom of the advanced ribbon. And you'll see here, calculate multiple critical paths. So that's everything, every chain without a finish or without a successor after it, where it's like the last item in the chain. Every last item in a chain without a successor is going to show a critical path for that chain. So that's what calculate multiple critical paths does. It works really well if you have like perfect logic in your schedule and where nothing is open. But if you like drop a successor somewhere and don't realize it, then something's all of a sudden critical that maybe shouldn't be. So that's the risk you run there, but it is helpful if it's used correctly. And then tasks are critical if Slack, which Slack is float. Microsoft Project calls float Slack. So tasks are critical if Slack is less than or equal to 0 days. So that's saying that your critical path is 0 days. If you wanted more things to be critical, this is where you could modify the number of days for things to show as red on the bar chart. Okay. Any questions on this? This is everything we'll go over for the project options. Is there anything that you guys want to see again or that you didn't catch? Split tasks, that's in the schedule. I don't like split tasks because I think that it can be reflected better with like adding an activity and actually splitting it. But that option is right here. It lets you split it. Anything else? And a split task is when you have like a bar and then dots and then the rest of the bar. So it's basically like something's out of sequence. And I do like the split tasks for something that's like a finish constraint where it's ongoing, but it can't finish until something else is there. I like to show it there. But if it's like delayed by something, I like to actually have 2 activities rather than suspend it. But that's just my preference.
So like for a weather delay,
Because then you don't show that it was going during that time frame. You show that it actually wasn't happening that day. And then if you were to look at your start and finish date and then count the number of days, it's not like way too many. Yeah. But it's also your preference for what you like to show. Yeah, you could do it. Yeah, you could do it whatever way, but yeah, that's what that is. Does anyone not know what that is? Where it's like there's dots in between it? Yeah, so that would be like, I don't know if we don't have anything in progress right now, but do you know how he'd show how he wants to do the weather that way? The dots? Okay. Yeah, like you have to have, it has to be on,
complete.
yeah, like it has to be ongoing. So if you had, this is the weather task, so it probably won't work, but so if this was started already and then you had a weather day, yeah. Say you had like 2 weather days this week and then that pushed it out. That's a split task. I didn't have a % in here, so do you guys, it's really small, but do you guys see that? Sorry. Okay. I mean, I wouldn't like recommend doing this in most cases. There are ways where like weather is really the one time where it's fine because weather's weather. But if you have a delay, like typically you're not actually working at all on that activity, so you'd have a break in the work. But I can show you guys again how I did that if you guys want. But okay, yeah, we'll get into this kind of stuff later. Undo. Okay. All right, any other questions on the project options or the project info? Okay, perfect. Okay, so then we'll go over the task ribbon. So the way the ribbons are set up, so task is going to be everything to do with one specific row number on the schedule. So this is going to be all related to the one row that you're talking about. So task being like a summary task is a task, a milestone is a task, and then also your activities themselves are tasks. So everything's just called a task. So everything in this task ribbon is going to be specific to that. There are some things that carry over, like you can access the views, which is this first one. You can access the views in multiple of the ribbons. You can also access details, which we had talked about earlier. So the details at the bottom, if you look over here on the far right-hand side, you'll see this details icon. This may look different for you, but It's right here. And that is how you pop up the predecessors and successors. Does anybody show resource predecessor at the bottom? Okay, so if you show resource predecessor, then right click, just hover anywhere down here and right click. And you'll see that you'll be able to show and change it to whatever you want to see. So you can change it to predecessors and successors from here, and then you should see it reading that way. Does anybody not have that pop up? So again, that was in this task ribbon. And then on this far right-hand side, it says details. And then if you have resource predecessor and you want to change it to predecessor and successor, then hover down here and right click and change that to predecessors and successors. Anybody not able to change theirs? Everyone good? Okay. All right, perfect. So also in the task ribbon, this is where you'll see if you want to highlight your rows. So the way that you can highlight an entire row is by clicking on the row number itself. So I just clicked on 1 with this. Do you see that arrow? To click on the whole row. Now it's all highlighted. I can change this color to be a different color at the top if I want, which I wouldn't recommend changing the colors. I would just keep them your company colors, but that's how you do change them. You will want to use modifying colors if you add subsections. So if you wanted to make a subsection underneath something, then you'd want to color it to be the same color. We'll go over that in the next class, but that's in this task ribbon with the paint bucket here. All right. So here, right next to the text features, this here is the outdent, and then this is indent. So that's how you can make something a summary task. So if you wanted your building permit complete to be a summary task, all you have to do is indent what's underneath it, and that's how you make something a summary. And then if you want to say, oh, that was an accident, I don't want that to be a summary, you can just outdent it, and now it's back to a task. Everyone comfortable with that? You can also select multiple at a time. So I can say I want all 4 of these to be underneath building pad complete. Then you can highlight all 4 at the same time and you can indent them. And so now there's summaries underneath this. I mean, this is just an example, not ignore the titles on this. This is just examples of how to do it. So then if I wanted to put these back and have them not be a summary, then I can highlight all 4 again and I can outdent it to the left. Okay. So similar, this is how you can link a task. You also have the split here where this is the icon to split a task with the percentage completes above it. I don't use these personally, but this is where you can access the quick keys for that. And then this is link and this is unlink. So you can do hold your control key to tie things together. So if you said building pad complete, this is not like this logic is just random, but building pad complete, if you wanted that to be before roof deck complete, you could hold your control key down on your keyboard and click on the second one. And it's gonna, if you use your control key, it'll tie them together in the order that you click them in. So I'm gonna say building pad complete, control key, roof deck complete. And then if you clicked the link tool, that's where it's gonna tie those 2 together. Finish to start, yeah. Yeah, so it always defaults that it's finish to start. You can change it from there once it's on there. And then the unlink is similar. If I click that, it takes the link away from those 2 activities. Okay, any questions on the buttons that we've gone through so far in the task ribbon? Okay, this auto schedule, if you wanted to say, okay, let's take all of the manually scheduled off this section, I can highlight all the push pins. And then I can change them to auto schedule, and that'll change it for me. So that's one of the shortcuts. If you don't want to use this drop down arrow to change it, then you can use these buttons up here. So a lot of the stuff in this is going to be features that you can access somewhere else as well. But this is just one of the ways that you can find all the buttons, really. If you wanted to add a task, you can use this plus task button. That's one of the ways. Same with adding a summary or adding milestones. So when we went over the project information to show the start date, you can also see all of your task information, and that is this right here. So if I click on this information button, this is going to be task information that's just specific to this one task you have highlighted, whereas before with project information, it was specific to the entire project. So all you have to do for that to pop up is just click on any activity, any single activity, click information, and then you'll see task information for that item. Any questions on that? Okay. All right. And then the planner, this is like syncs it to Microsoft Planner. I don't use that, so I don't know if it works, but that's what this is. So, okay, so you guys are in the same boat. All right. And then scroll to task. You can scroll to a certain task if you so say like you have something clicked on down here and then you went up, scroll to task. Oh, that was actually, just kidding. Take that back. That changed the Gantt chart. If you want to go to a task, so say that like you're looking at, say that you're looking at something down here and it has a predecessor of a number that's somewhere else, then you can click go to task, and that's Control G, and you can actually type in the row number that you want the screen to jump to. So that it doesn't roll. So say that we are, we know that the notice to proceed is 4. I'm going to tie these in so that it's just for the example. This is just random, but so say, oh, okay, I want to look at this predecessor here and it's not within view of the screen. I can look and see that this ID right here is 4. You guys see that down there? So then I can say, oh, I don't want to scroll up and find it. So I'm going to go Control G and say go to, and I can just type ID 4, and that'll jump me up to the top so that I don't have to scroll and go find it. Yeah. So that is this button right here. You see details? It might not have the word details next to it. Okay. Any other questions? Any other questions here? Okay, I'm going to skip the resource ribbon since resources are not common in Microsoft Project. If you guys have any questions on resources, feel free to ask, but otherwise, I feel like it doesn't apply. Okay. Report, this is related to the resources as well. So then we'll go back to the project ribbon. So the project ribbon is very similar to the task ribbon, but it's everything with your whole project. So we already went over project information, this first one here. The next one that you'll use quite often is the change working time. So this is where you set up your calendars. So everybody click on project and then go to change working time. And you should see your calendar window pop up. Do you guys see that? Okay, so now let's go through and let's make a calendar day calendar. So we already have our standard calendar, which is a 5-day work week. This is where yours will look different if you didn't have your week start Monday. That's why my grays are stacked at the end. So you should see, so again, that's in the project ribbon here, and then change working time. And then you'll get your calendar to pop up. Everybody see that? Okay. So here you have the calendar. So these are already set on like a reoccurring basis. However, what they don't have is, so Independence Day is set to be on the 4th every year. This is where when you do start with your project, you want to go through and you want to see if there's any holidays that are falling on a weekend, because if they're falling on a weekend, you're going to want to block off another day for them as well. So say for this first one for Independence Day, say that you want to make Friday the 5th also a non-working day because you don't think anyone's going to come that day. So then you can click on the first blank cell, and then you can say day after 4th of July or whatever you wanted to call it. And when you hit enter, it'll auto-populate with a date. So all I did, I'm going to delete that. All I did was go to the first blank cell, and you can either click on the date first and then type in the cell, or you can type in the cell and then change the date. It doesn't matter. But I went here, I see that the 4th of July is blocked off as a holiday, but I don't think that the 5th is going to be a working day either. So I'm going to click on the 5th on my calendar, and then click on the first blank cell down here with the holidays. I'm going to say day after 4th of July. And when I hit enter, it blocked that off the calendar as well. So so I think it's in 2026, then 4th of July falls on a Saturday. So that's when you'd want to scroll through for your project duration and make sure that your holidays are actually accounted for and not falling on the weekend. Do you guys want to see more examples of the holidays, of adding a holiday in? Oh, then you can change. So then you can click on the cell for the start and you can just manually do it. Yeah. So what you'd have to do is you'd have to go into the calendar up here first. So say that, let's go to day after Thanksgiving. So scroll down on your calendar here with the arrows, go to November of 2024. And do you see how the 29th is not blocked off? So click on the 29th.
It's showing
On yours is blocked off?
no, on yours, it's just not blocked up on the calendar, but you already have an item for it.
Well, so Thanksgiving's blocked off for the 28th, but then the day after is shown as a working day.
But why is it shown on your calendar that exists there? Go to item number 5, Thanksgiving Friday. So,
This is the way that it's set up. It's set up to be reoccurring for the 4th. Oh, you're right. I don't know.
Friday.
It should be the 4th Thursday. I don't know why that's, is anyone else's Friday? So all of yours, why is mine the 27th?
11,
So it
20,
said the 29th.
27th and 29th, but it's showing.
Okay.
Your start should be 11/27. This one on 11/28, the second one.
Yeah.
Which is weird.
Oh yeah, no, you're right. I see.
See that?
Yeah.
Instead of adding,
hmm
do not go to, say, finish
2 days.
on the floor.
You can, but if it's set on a reoccurring, it won't let you. Yeah. So it'll try to change it back. I don't know why mine isn't shown here. But all of yours are blocked off? Just mine's not, yours isn't? Okay. So if you wanted to add this day, you can just click on the 29th. And then I'm just gonna say day after Thanksgiving. And then I blocked off that specific day of year. Okay. Also, if you wanted to block off your whole week of Christmas, you could do the same thing. But these are just where, especially if you have a project that observes more holidays than another, you just definitely want to check this at the start of your template, just because every project does observe different holidays for the most part. Any questions so far on this, on how we access the calendar and how we're viewing our holidays? Yeah.
Say I want Saturday,
Okay.
work day.
So you'd want to make a second calendar that's a 6-day work week and set an activity to that. So let's make
Just that one Saturday.
correct. Yeah, well, we'd set a 6-day work week calendar that's every Saturday is a working day, or every Monday through Saturday, and then just that activity that worked on Saturday, you would assign to that calendar. Does that make sense? So to save your changes in your calendar, you always have to click OK. So if I want to change my holiday changes, or if I want to save my holiday changes, click OK and exit your calendar window. And then now we're going to go back to it. So we're going to go back to project change working time, but now our changes are saved in there. It jumped up somewhere else, but
Chronological.
yeah. Okay. So now let's make a 6-day work week calendar. So on the far right, so now we're going to go back. We're in project change working time. So click create new calendar on the right-hand side. Does everybody see that? Create new calendar. And then it comes up copy of standard. So we'll change this to 6-day work week. Okay. And then say okay. And you should see that your title up here changed to 6-day work week. You guys see that? All right, awesome. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go, instead of the exceptions where we were looking before, go to work weeks, which is on the right-hand side. So we were in exceptions looking at the holidays, but go to the right and say work weeks. And then you'll see the one for default. Does everybody see that? Okay, so work weeks, default, and then click on this far right-hand side button for details. So we have the default highlighted or selected. and then details, and you should get another pop-up window above it. So if you didn't get that, we're in the calendar here. We're under work weeks, and then we're going to click details. Okay, so now we have this new pop-up window that shows us each day of the week. And if you scroll through, you'll see Monday through Friday, they all have shaded 8 a.m. to 12 p.m., 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. So we're going to match that on Saturday so that we're going to change our calendar to be from a 5-day work week to a 6-day. So click on Saturday on the left-hand side. And you should see that it's blank here. So on Saturday on the left-hand side, choose the third bullet point that says set days to these specific working times. And then from here, this is similar to how we changed our time of day. Just type in an 8 and then hit enter. And you can change this to 12. And then same 1 o'clock to 5 o'clock. So the important thing here is that your time of day matches so that each day of the week, whatever you're plugging in for another day is matching with the time frames so that you avoid having an activity that says, okay, so one starts at, ends at 4 p.m. and then your next one starts at 4:01. You don't want that. So that's why you just want your time of day to be consistent. You could, but it would be just for that specific date. It wouldn't be for like every Saturday. Yeah. So then once you have this typed in, so again, this is just, we went to the default work week and then clicked on Saturday. We said set days to these specific working times and then typed in the time frames. So when I select OK, keep an eye on this back here where the gray is the shaded non-working time. When I say OK, now all of my Saturdays have opened up to be holidays, or to be working days rather. So now this is a 6-day work week calendar. The only thing here is you do want to verify if it comes up that your holidays are marked off for any holiday that is falling now on the wrong day of the week. So that is just one thing that you'll have to manually check every time. It's just that your holidays are actually like being recognized. But that's how you make a 6-day work week calendar. Any questions there? Okay. You guys want to do that again and make a calendar day? Okay. So go to project and then change working time. So project ribbon, change working time. And in our pop-up window, say create new calendar. And this time we're going to call it calendar day. So create new calendar and calendar day. Right? And then say okay. And for this one, we're actually going to delete all of our holidays out because we don't want any holidays in our calendar day. So you can click on them individually and hit the delete button, or you can use your delete key on your keyboard. You can also highlight all of them and click delete. So whichever way you prefer, but just delete all of the holidays out so that your calendar day calendar doesn't have any exceptions in it. So the first thing is exceptions. Delete everything that we show in here so that now every day is going to be a day on the calendar day calendar. And then after that, click on work weeks on the right. And then we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go to the default and then click on details. So we already got rid of our holidays. So now in work weeks, under default, click on details on the right. Okay, is everyone good so far? Okay, so now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go to Saturday. And then the third bullet point, set days to these specific working times. So Saturday, set days to these specific working times. And then we're going to type in 8 o'clock to 12 o'clock and 1 o'clock to 5 o'clock. Okay, and then we're going to do that one more time with Sunday. So click on Sunday and say set days to these specific working times. And we're going to say the same thing. I'm just typing in 8 to 12, and then 1 to 5. Okay. Is there any part of this before I click OK that you guys want to see again? Okay. So when you select OK, you should see that now your whole calendar has every single day as a working day, which that's what we want for our calendar day calendar. Yeah.
Is that different?
So the 24 hours is actually going to be like 3 8-hour days in a day. Yeah. I think that's just like a built-in one, the 24 hours. Yeah, no lunch break. Oh, and a lunch break?
No, it's a-
Oh, yeah, no lunch, yeah, no lunch break.
It's $3 working days,
Yeah.
no break.
Okay. So then you have calendar day. Okay, so now if you click your drop down, you should see that you have your 6-day work week in here and your calendar days in here. Okay. All right. So then to save your changes, click OK. And now you should have your 3 calendars that are built in here. The 6-day work week, I would advise against assigning that in your baseline. You don't really, if your contract is in 5-day work week, then you want to leave all of your like schedule activities on a 5-day work week. If you change anything to a 6-day in your baseline, then you're getting rid of your like weather day that you have. So makeup day, like all your makeup days are gone. If you actually schedule your work on a 6-day, I would leave those to be assigned when they actually happen. Or if you need to accelerate in the future and you have something that you're signing off with accelerating on, then you can change it to a 6-day. But I would refrain from adding a 6-day calendar anywhere in your baseline, unless it's contractual where that scope of work is planned to be on a 6-day work week. But what you can do is you can assign your substantial completion and anything that is contractual that's counting calendar days. So if your contract's in calendar days, you can say that your tracking substantial completion is in calendar days. You can also say that your project itself is in calendar days. So if you want to change a calendar, right click, get the arrow where you're above a column and right click and say insert column. So I just hovered over the top of one of the columns. So in this case, I just did actual start. It's going to go to the left of whatever you're clicking on. So right click on the top of actual start and say insert column. And it should prompt you to type in a column name. This is where you can say task calendar is what it's called. So again, what I did is I right clicked up at the top of a column. I said insert column. And then started typing in task calendar. And that will give you the column for task calendar. Okay. So again, just right click on the top of any column and say insert. And that will give you the option to add whatever column of information you want to see. Okay. So then if I want to put my actual schedule itself on a calendar day, then you can actually just click on the drop down arrow of this item and change it to a calendar day. So you should see that it should change from 18 days because that's counting 18 working days. When you change it to a calendar day, now I have 24 working days. Yeah, because I'm counting every day. Okay. And then same with milestones. Usually where people will see this is they'll want to do it on the top so that overall you're counting calendar days. And then you'll want to assign your cure activities to a calendar day so that you can cure, any day of the week. And then just your contract milestones. So I'm going to say, okay, tracking substantial, let's make that a calendar day. We're going to make the contract substantial calendar day. And then you can also click on the one that you've already changed here. So I'm going to click on this first cell of task calendar that I changed to a calendar day. And if you get this icon here, that's like the skinny plus sign. So I just clicked on the cell for calendar day. And then when you get the skinny plus sign icon, you can just click and drag down to fill that calendar down to the next 2 activities. So that's how you can change your calendar days. So say you're updating, or say that your steel or something is contracted to work on a 6-day work week. So you could go down to primary steel because they're, you know that no matter what, they're going to be working on a 6-day. It's not considered a makeup day for them. Then you can just change these specific activities to be on a 6-day work week, if that's the case. Or if you're updating and they did work on a 6-day, you can change it to a 6-day. Any questions on the calendars, assigning them or creating them? Anything that you guys want to see again? Okay. All right. So the rest of the project ribbon up here, set baseline, we're going to go over this one later, but the set baseline option is in this tab. We'll also have status date, which your status date is going to be the same as your data date or your progress date. That'll be the date of your schedule. We don't have one since it's a baseline. You could set it in a baseline, you could set it to be the day before your project starts, or you could just leave it. But once you actually start with updates, then your status date is going to be the date of that update. So it'll be, June 1st, July 1st, whatever. Or if you're doing weekly updates, it'll be the day that you do the update. But that's what this is right here for status date. And then there's the spell check right next to it. You guys want to use that. For the people that had the autosave, is it still popping up? It's all gone? Okay. There was like one person last class where it wouldn't go away. So I'm just curious. All right. Any questions about the project ribbon? Okay. So now we'll go over the view ribbon. So the view, this is going to be everything to modify what you're seeing in the schedule, but it's not changing anything in the schedule. So it's not changing any of your logic. It's not changing any of your durations. It's not deleting anything. All it's doing is just changing what you're looking at. So in the view, you'll see another option to change the Gantt chart, tracking Gantt, task usage, that's resource related. You can look at your calendar view and see the calendar of your project if you click on that. Yeah.
What is the
The tracking Gantt's what he was talking about with the formatting, where you can have like your own formatting that's hidden. So you can make notes on it, you can highlight stuff. I think you can add like little sticky note looking things. But you can change your formatting where when you want something clean to print out, you change it back to Gantt chart and that stuff doesn't show up. Yeah. Okay. Then if you skip over, we're going to skip over the resources. Sort, that's going to be sort by start, sort by finish. This is like if you're sorting a column in Excel, it's the same thing. Outline, this is where you can actually double check your outline levels and make sure that they're correct. So if you go to outline and then click on level 1. So the outline drop down, level 1, it should collapse your entire schedule to just be the heading. So it collapses your entire schedule to the first level. So if you wanted to check your levels, make sure everything's set up how you want it to, click outline level 2. Click on something else. So now you should see level 2. You can do the same thing, outline level 3. And this is where if you're adding levels, you can use the format painter to take colors. So you could click on a whole row number. And then in the task ribbon, there's this format painter paintbrush. We'll go over this one again. But the format painter paintbrush, you can actually grab the whole color of the row and assign it to another row to carry over the colors for that level as you're going through and checking. So I'm going to go back to the view ribbon. So we did outline level 1. That's how we collapsed it to the very first item. And then outline level 2. Now it's showing our next headings. Outline level 3, your next set of headings. And you can continue this on to check as much as you want on here. You could do outline and then you could just click all subtasks. Yeah. You could do level 9 too. Both would work. Okay, any questions on that? Okay, and then next to that, we have the filter. So this is where you can filter for the built-in ones of the critical filter, date range, which would be like your look ahead filter, incomplete tasks, milestones. You can filter for just your summary tasks, and it won't show anything that's underneath those. But this has all the built-in filters, and then as we're going through, we're going to build out custom filters as well. But this is where you can change. So we're not changing our schedule. We're not deleting anything. We're just hiding certain things. So I did filter for summary tasks. So now I don't see anything that's not a summary task. And if I go filter, no filter, then now everything shows up here again. Okay.
What's the hierarchy of the summary is?
It's anything that has something else under it. Yeah, anything that's a heading or like a WBS is like what you'll hear too. But it's anything that has subtasks underneath it is considered a summary task.
Like your time, milestone.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. And like, but milestones is also a summary task, even though it has more summaries underneath it. Milestones itself is also a summary task. Yeah.
Not the milestone.
Correct. Correct. That one would just be a task. Yeah. Or I mean, in this case, really it'd be a milestone. So right now it's a 1-day duration. To make something a milestone, you just make it 0 days. And that turns it into a milestone. Yeah. So I'm going to do the same with building permit, 0 days. The only downside is with Microsoft Project, there's no start milestone and finish milestone. It's so your start milestone is going to want to be at 5 p.m. the day before, which is kind of annoying, but there is no like differentiation, just a milestone is a milestone. Okay. Then if you keep going over, it's another option to show your details. So if you're in this ribbon already, you don't want to jump over to task, you can click on this check mark for details, and this will make it pop up. This is also another way that you can show your timeline that we hid right at the very beginning. Okay. And then task form, this is just another way to view the other options that you see over here. So really the view ribbon is a lot of features outside of the filter and the groupings. The view ribbon's a lot of features that you access in another ribbon as well. Any questions on this one before we continue on to the next? Okay. So Gantt chart format, this is the last ribbon that we'll look at. So this is where you will look at everything that's included on your Gantt chart over here. So the view is how you look at the data, and then Gantt chart format is how the data looks over here. So the first thing that we'll do is we'll actually change the text styles. With text styles, that's going to be your whole schedule. But go to Gantt chart format and click on text styles. So Gantt chart format, text styles. And what we'll do is we're going to change our default font from Calibri is what it wants to do for everything you add. So again, we're in the Gantt chart format here, and then text styles. You'll get this pop-up window. So we're going to say that the default font, so click on this first field for font and start typing in Arial. Okay, so we just started typing in Arial and then click OK. And then your whole schedule should have changed to be an Arial font. So that was Gantt chart format, text styles. Really? Oh, click on oh wait. On you don't have Gantt chart format? Okay. Click on a task in your table somewhere.
There it is.
Okay. You're welcome. Okay, so text styles, and then you can say Arial. So this will change where it says item to change all. That's like we're changing the whole font throughout this whole thing to all. And then you could also make it bigger if you wanted. I think the default's already 10, so see, make it like 12. Now I just made all my font bigger. Just aesthetics, yeah. Yeah, just like a more of like a company branding type. Yeah. Or just if you don't want to read Calibri.
Or if you're tired of it.
Yeah. So no other benefit to it. Okay. And then this is all pretty much just how you look at your columns and everything. We have like wrap text in columns. You can hide a column from here as well. I like to just hide my columns from the top of it. So if you want to hide task calendar, then get the big arrow again, and then right click and hide column. And that'll get rid of a column. I'm going to do the same thing with actual start. I'm going to right click and hide the column. I'm also going to hide resource names. I don't want to see that one because typically a lot of people will type in like your subcontractor name into resource names. I don't recommend doing that. I would do it in a text field because if you do it in the resource name field, it's actually like creating resources and it's trying to assign those to resource assignments that have other values associated with it. If you do it in just a text field, then it's not going to have any background calculations that it's trying to associate. So if you've been seeing that you get like a little red man right here on the left, it's because you have them as resources and it thinks it's over allocated. Sometimes it tries to push it out or it won't let something happen on a certain day of week. So just to stay away from all of that.
But that is its normal.
Yes.
When it turns red, it shows, hey, you have multiple tasks
Right.
on the same day.
Mhm.
It can't discern that you have
3 crews.
3 crews.
Right.
That's-
Yeah.
We use that a lot in the.
Mhm. Sure. Yeah, you could set it up to say that you have 3 crews, but you would have to go through that process. We can go through it like towards the end. Sure. Yeah. If you do utilize it, there are ways that you can do it and you can make it work. But just for general, when people are not trying to do that, then it'll give you the man. So, yeah. Yep. Right. Yeah, there's no unhide. It would just be to insert a column and then type it in. Yes. Yeah. It'll all still be there. So then let's add a column for text and we'll make a subcontractor field. So right click, insert column, and start typing the word text. There's a bunch of them. Yeah. I think you can have like 30 of them in here. And then click text 1. So all I did was I added a column. I started typing the word text and I'm choosing text 1. Okay. So then this next part, if you wanted to actually rename this field, you can triple click on the top heading. So triple click where it says text 1. And you should see like a type option, you know, you're getting that cursor. So start typing the word subcontractor. And hit enter. So now your column title should be subcontractor. So all I did was triple click on this and I typed in the word subcontractor and then I actually changed this field to be called subcontractor.
So when you search for text 1, it's not there anymore.
So it'll still be there. So now, I'm going to hide this. So now I'm going to add that column back. If you search text 1, you'll see that it's also called subcontractor if you forgot where you stored your information. You can also type in subcontractor and it's going to say parenthesis text 1. So it'll be both ways. Just to this file. Yeah. Yeah. So if you do like apartments and you have different buildings, then you could have a text field that's building 1, building 2, building 3. You could also have like level, you know, level 1, level 2. So because once you have these in here, you can group by them. So if you wanted to say, like, I only want to see everything that's just your MEPs, you can actually click the drop down and you can actually filter for the ones that you want. And you can consolidate your schedule just to see the ones that you want in here. We'll get into this. What?
Oh, and when you like trying to print that out for just for that.
Right. Yeah. You can print out just their schedule. You could also print out like just, you know, interiors or just whatever you want to make a code for and filter for. Yeah. Mhm. So that would be a filter also. But what you could do is you could say, I want a 4-week schedule just for the concrete crew. Then you could mix and match and you could do both. But it is the filters. That's where you would find those. Because you can click the drop down arrow of start, and then you can do filter, and you can say just this month. Or you could say just next week, and you can filter, or you can say before, after, between. That's where you could say that you want everything that's between this date and this date. You can also do it in the date range filter, just whichever one is your preference. Let's add another text field and rename it, but let's call this one, so right click, insert column, and start typing text 2. And select your column for text 2. So all I did was I right clicked, insert a column, and now I'm going to select text 2. So then to rename it, same thing here, triple click on the top, and we'll call this one area. So now we have our subcontractor and we have our area. So then in the area, you could just type in milestones here. And once you have something typed in, you can just drag it down to fill that down. You can also click on a cell and you can use your control key to drag it down to certain cells. And this is just like Excel if you use this feature in Excel, but I'm going to click on one cell and then I'm going to click on the ones that I want it to fill to. And then right click and you can fill down. So if you're assigning things and you want to go faster, those are just little shortcuts that you can do. But you could say, okay, I want all my milestones, and then this is all going to be pre-construction, and you can fill that down. You could do the same with submittals. So I'm going to say submittals. You can also click on the first one and you can use your shift key. That is going to fill it down to everything in between the two. So I'm going to click submittals at the top. I'm actually going to scroll all the way down to the last procure deliver. And using my shift key, I'm going to click on the last cell and then fill down from there. So these are just kind of like functionality shortcuts. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, sure. So I'm going to click on the first one. I'm using my control key to choose the ones that I want. And then right click once you're done, and then select fill down. Yeah. You're welcome. And that's the same if you use the shift key. So say that I want to actually assign this to everything, but I already have some in here. That's okay because it's the same. I can override it. So I'm going to click on the last one down here. So I'm holding my shift key down. So I have the first one clicked, and using my shift key, I'm going to click on the last one that's under submittals, right click, and then fill down. So now I assigned it to everything in between. Okay. Franchise utilities. I mean, do you guys want to keep going through and assign the rest of them, or you guys get the idea? Okay. So once you have these assigned in here, you can actually click on the drop down arrow of area. And this is where you can say, okay, I only want to filter for pre-construction. And say, okay, now I'm only showing the pre-construction items and I'm not showing anything else. I can do the same thing and I can say, I want milestones and pre-construction, but I don't want to show submittals. Then we have milestones and pre-construction. You can also, I'm going to select all to clear my filters. You can also click the drop down and say group on this field, and it'll actually regroup your schedule to be based on those. So the first one's no value, but here's all my milestones. Here's all my pre-construction. Here's all my submittals. So this is a way where you can see if you're trade stacking. So if you have all of your like millwork, assigned, then you can see if they're on multiple levels at one time or multiple areas. If you group it, then it's just easier to see that, and you can see if everything's, yeah. So like here I can see, oh, like well, those are all milestones, but I can see, oh, these are all happening at the same time. So that's a way that you can kind of check as well, like check your work there. And then if you want to get rid of the grouping, just click the drop down of area where we got it. And instead of saying group on this field, just say no group. We'll go through all these again. I know that this is kind of fast, but this is just an intro of like different things you can do. And then as we go through the next class, when we're building out a schedule, we'll go through and practice the functionality of assigning a responsible party and grouping and filtering and saying, oh, we want to see, mixing and matching the filters. So you want to see critical path, but critical path in only the next 3 weeks, or critical path in only this trade. You can do those by mixing and matching these filters here in the columns. Yeah.
What's your favorite way to do it?
I like to use the view and then the date range. Yeah,
You want making your own filter.
you can. I mean, you could. I like to do the date range just so I see it. But some people do like to have a built-in 3-week look ahead. So just, yeah, my preference is this, so.
This might be a question, but before we can have a little more nuance.
Mhm. You'd have to put them all into the master if you wanted to do that. You could,
Like individual.
yeah. Yeah, it would have to be like all one. Yeah. Like you could say, so say like the utilities, you have it all built out, but you don't want to show it. You can just collapse this and then have everything collapse underneath it. So it'll just say like, if you have like just sanitary sewer, you can collapse sanitary sewer that has the detailed items under it. Yeah.
You do that by indenting or outdenting.
We can kind of build it out. So you don't have to follow along. You can just watch. But I'm just going to add some activities here. I'll say, here's storm drain work. Here's sanitary sewer work. And then here's domestic water. So then I can indent these 3 underneath the heading here, and I can make that a heading. And then I can say, oh, my storm drain work, let's say we have, 5 activities as subsections here that are detailed. Yeah, so you could, storm line A, line B, line C, line D. And then you can have those underneath storm drain, like that. So then if you didn't want to show the details, you can just collapse storm drain work, and then you see or let me put duration so you can see that. I'm going to link them together. You don't have to follow along with this, but I'm just going to link them. So you see that this is a 20-day duration, but if you don't want to see the details of it, then you still have a 20-day duration for storm drain work. Yes. Yes, I did. Yeah. Yeah, you can use if you use your shift key, it's going to tie everything finish to start top down when you link it. Yeah. You're welcome. But then if you wanted to have them not go in this order, you could use your control key. So I'm going to say, let's go line A and then C and then D, then B, if that's the order you're going to go in. Click on them with your control key in that order. And when you link them, it's going to link in that order. Especially in the next, like when we're building out, so say you're building out, or let's do it with the paving. So the paving, let's say that, yeah, this is the order you want to go in for paving for these 4 activities. We'll say, okay, fire lanes is going to be 3 days. This is going to be 5. Let's say the truck dock ramp is 5, and then sidewalks, let's say 10. I'm going to take these all off the auto schedule or off manual, make it auto. So I'm going to click on all 4 and say auto schedule. So now they're going to move with the logic now. And so say what, or I'll let you say, what order do you want me to put them in? Just somebody pick.
Always start with sidewalks first.
Does anybody want to just choose? Someone can delegate the order and I'll click on it.
Yeah, fire lane, docks,
Okay.
paving.
Okay. And then I'm going to say link. And now they're all in that order. Yeah, it's nice. Makes it easy.
Explain one more time,
Mhm.
manual auto, and then how do you auto schedule?
Sure. So if you're like, if you don't, basically the manually scheduled is just like a reference point for if you've done that section or not. If you want your whole thing to be auto, you can actually just click up here. I'm like covering it with the icon, but this square at the top left, you can click on that. It highlights everything and you can say auto schedule and it makes your whole schedule auto schedule. It'll let everything move. Yeah, so like you don't want any manually scheduled stuff at the end, but the benefit to keeping the manually scheduled on is that you haven't put in durations for this. Once it's auto scheduled, it populates it to a day. So that's just kind of like a reference point when you're building it out for how to know if you're done with that section. But also like you would know if you're done because nothing's tied in here. And so like if you're comfortable seeing that and seeing that nothing's tied in, then you know that that's not done yet. But then with your MEP rough-ins, then you can, click on the order that you want to do things and tie them together using the control. All right. And then, so the last thing for the Gantt chart format is to show formatting of the bars. So let's add formatting to our milestones. So let's everybody make it auto scheduled so that you have tasks that show up. So click on this top left to highlight everything. And in the task ribbon, say auto schedule. It'll make everything be auto scheduled. Okay. So again, you just click on this blank square and then say auto schedule. Okay. So does everybody have and then make sure that all your milestones are 0 days. So then I'm going to say for my project milestones, I'm just going to type in a 0 next to each of those so that each of the milestones is actually showing up as a milestone. Okay. All I did was just type on I just overrode the duration and just typed in a 0. Mm-hmm. So that it wasn't showing as 1. Okay, is everybody comfortable up to this point here? Okay. So now we'll go to Gantt chart. Yours says format and not Gantt chart, but that's okay. And then this format paint bucket here, click on it and choose bar styles. So format bar styles. And you should see this pop-up window here. So we went to Gantt chart format paint bucket, and then bar styles. So now this is showing us what the default is for all of our bar styles. Okay, so click on the first one for task. And at the bottom here, it says bar, and then it says text. So go over to text, and instead of resource name, start typing in the word name and override that cell. So we went to task, text, and then instead of resource name, we're just typing in name. Okay. So when you say okay, you should see that your activity names are going to populate next to these bars here. We're going to do that again with the milestones. But any questions before we do that one more time? Okay. So format, and then the format paint bucket and bar styles. and then milestone, which is the third one. We already did the task, so now we're going to do milestones. So then on text, instead of saying task finish, let's make the left-hand side be the finish, and it can be task finish or just finish, it doesn't matter. But on the left, say finish, and then on the right, say name. So we're on milestone, text, on the left-hand side, finish, and on the right-hand side, name. And when you say okay, you'll see that now your milestones are reading the date and then the name.
Reason why there's only 16.
I just have the formatting. It's under, let's see. I can't remember where to access that. You can change it, but yeah. I think it's under like date or something. I can't remember where it is. You can change it though. I have it set to short date. You can change it if you want it to be longer. Okay. Right. And then if you want your critical path to show, right now, the critical path is probably just this weather day activity. But next to format, if you click on critical, that will turn your critical path red. I guess my critical path's down here. But if you activate the critical, it's going to make your critical path red of your project. So that's also in the Gantt chart format. And then next to the format for the bars, check mark the critical tasks, and that'll give you a critical path on your project. That'll make your critical path show as red. You can also, this is where you show a baseline bar. We don't have one set, so we'll see this one later, but in the Gantt chart format is where you show a baseline bar. You can also show a task path. So in the task path, say you want to know what a certain activity is driving out. So if I click on successors and then I click on fire lane, I have to take off critical, sorry, take that off. If I click on fire lane, everything that fire lane is pushing out is going to turn purple. So if you, this is more for just like checking your own sequencing, but if you, so say like your building permit was late, it's not tied in, so it's not going to work here, but if your building permit was late and you wanted to know everything that that building permit's pushing out, you could show the task path of successors and then click on building permit, and everything that's following after it is going to turn purple. So these are just like things to utilize as you're working through it if you find it helpful. If you don't, that's okay. But the task path of driving predecessors, that's the one that's going to show you what your critical path is to that activity. So if I say, okay, what's my critical path to sidewalks? It turns orange. That's my critical path to that activity. So that's the one that I find most beneficial, is the task path driving predecessors, because that shows you, you know, the critical path to whatever you click on. If you wanted to move these to be in order, then you can just click on the row number and then get this icon here with the arrows, and you can just drag it down, and that changes where it's located.
Why does sometimes when I like on my projects, the numbers are all not in sequential?
So that would be like if you have a sort on
Okay.
and you're sorting by start, but you can change that if you went to the view and then it's actually under the sort.
Okay.
So say that you're done with your baseline, all the numbers are messed up.
Yeah.
You can do sort by, and you can say sort by start. And then you can say permanently renumber tasks,
Okay, cool.
and that'll renumber them to be sequential.
Yeah, sometimes I'm looking for like 272 and it's actually down.
Oh, yeah.
It's up at 160 and you're like, why is that?
Yeah, if you changed your schedule to be like in order of priority instead of start, it would fix it. Yeah. But if you wanted to make your, you know, you wanted to merge the two together and say you want your new sort by start to be also the priority, then you just do permanently renumber. Yeah.
On that format, task path,
Mhm.
would that have, if you had a difficult client that's saying, well, that didn't affect, they didn't affect that.
Mhm.
Is that how you would show them clearly in the schedule that this is what was
Mhm.
affected by whatever?
You could, yeah. Yeah, so you could say like driven successors, and then say that this is a weather day, then everything that weather day is actively driving out is going to turn purple. Or you could do whatever color you wanted, but yeah. So if you wanted to like change this purple to be something brighter, you could go format, bar styles. And now that we have it activated, you'll see it here at the bottom. This won't show up unless you have it selected to be shown. So because we have this selected, which is why you have like a little square around it, it'll be shown on here now because it's an option. So say instead of purple, you want this to be like bright yellow. You can change it from purple to yellow. And now those are yellow. So you can change it and modify it to be whatever stands out to you. I think that the orange for the driven predecessors is a little bit close to a critical path. So if you wanted to change that to be a different color, you could do that. Or if you wanted to make it red, you could do that to show that. So, but yeah, that's definitely a way that you can identify different things. All right. That is everything that I had for today. For this first class, we have like 10 minutes if you guys have any questions that you want to go over.
Yeah, I know.
All right, anything else? Yes, I'm sharing my screen on the Teams, so hopefully it'll, yeah. Are you guys like adding chapters or anything? Okay, yeah, you should be good. All right, well, thank you, everybody. Unless you guys have anything else, good. All right, thank you. I appreciate it.
So even like what, a month?
I think so, yeah. I think it's every 4 weeks, right? Or every 4?
Every 4 weeks.
2, someone said 2 weeks? 2 weeks if you want to come to the beginner class of the next one.
Thank you.
Or 3 weeks. You're welcome. Thank you.
So when is your next one?
This one